Gigantic.
It is October 15th, 2023, and welcome to the tongue-tied, the Gigantic Pop Podcast. Here we are. We're all back together again. This past last week, it was me and Raj for a very off-topic, crazy show. But Matt Morgan, Raj Giri, Glenn Rubenstein, we're together once again this week talking horror movies because it's October. Going to talk a little Friday the 13th versus Nightmare on Elm Street. Talk a little bit about some other things that are going on in the world. Yeah.
Speaking of which,
Justin
Lopez had just sent a tweet about how next week is Back to the Future Day.
Oh man, you want to dive? You want to dive right into Back to the Future?
I think we got to. It's Back to the Future Day.
Yeah. More importantly, fans, I'm sure you're super excited by our music intro that just came in. I get goosebumps every time I listen to it. I know you guys do too.
All right, sorry to interrupt the intro, Glenn, but just wanted to throw that out there.
I'm down for what you're saying though for Back to the Future.
I think that music intro is the first thing musical I've put effort into in probably a good 15 years.
Well, now I feel horrible. I did not know that.
It's fine. It was supposed to be different. There was the thing I just wanted to sample stuff. I was like, if the sample stuff were going to get taken down, like it was the thing. It was a whole thing, Matt.
Well, we didn't have music before.
I know. Well, they have it now, and it's really weird. It's like this countdown, like dun 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 dun, dun, and it's just every time I'm like, this is a bit much.
Do you get excited?
No, I talk over it and make funny noises. Because I'm professional, but I'm not that professional. So it's good to see you guys. So Matt, you did the most classic thing for someone our age, which is you were trying to stay up late and then you fell asleep Monday night.
Yes, and our wrestling fans will probably appreciate this. In my truck, no less. In my truck, purposely trying to stay up. I was working, and I'm like, well, I have to concentrate on work. That'll keep me wide awake, obviously. And I'm going back and forth on emails with people I'm trying to get into treatment, and boom, I conked out my head forward, my chin to my chest. My neck was killing me when I texted you guys like at 2 a.m. when I woke up.
Wow.
I said to my wife, I'm like, did you not notice I wasn't in the house at all? Anywhere?
I mean, your neighbors just must be like, Matt's in his truck again.
Yes.
Just hanging out. Yes. My mom picked up this behavior like 10 years ago. She will sit parked in a running car and just like check her email. Every time she gets the car, she doesn't text while driving. She doesn't do anything while driving, but she'll just sit there parked with the engine running and just respond to emails, text. Yeah. Sometimes she would leave our house. We'd go out an hour later. It's like my mom's still sitting there on her phone just in front of our house. It's very, very weird.
In the moment, she's banging them all out one by one.
Yeah. No, it's key. But so Monday we were a little off the rails. Today we're going to start talking about some horror movies about the 1980s. Freddy and Jason, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. Now it was just Friday the 13th. So of course, like 6 cable channels are like, we're doing a marathon.
Yes, and for folks that are tuning in right now, we're also to cover a couple other subjects as well.
Yes.
The Dillon Danis, a Logan Paul fight, along with my thoughts on one Tony Khan. But for now, the main event, the enchilada of today's show is this. And I want to say, just right from the gate, I was terrified. Guys, I don't know how it was for you as kids, but granted, all those movies were... Friday the 13th was scary, absolutely. I was always scared around the lake, especially at nighttime camping, right? But nothing close to going to sleep and Freddy Krueger coming in my dreams and screwing me up. I was terrified of him. Terrified.
Yeah. It's a powerful concept, right? And, even before Nightmare on Elm Street, did you guys see Dreamscape when that came out in 1983?
Yes.
Like with Dennis Quaid and Snake Man? Yeah. Yeah, that in 83, I guess I was 7 years old. I saw that. And I was like, I'm going to die in my sleep. Someone's going to murder me in my sleep. And so Nightmare on Elm Street just tapped into that times 100.
Yes, they did. And my brother one day had to give me, because I was so scared to go to sleep. He one time, it was right at the time with the, what number Nightmare on Elm Street was it? Dream Warriors.
Yes.
Where they figured out how to finally fight back in your dream and the superpowers you could have in your dreams. And that gave me a little bit of confidence as a little kid. And that was pretty cool because my brother never did cool things like that. It's always the opposite, making it worse, making it scarier.
Yeah.
I just rewatched the first Friday the 13th just a couple days ago. Totally forgot that there was no hockey mask whatsoever.
No,
with
not
that
till
first
3.
one. It's not till 3. Even
Not till
in 2,
3.
there isn't.
In 2, he's
There was
got
no
a
what?
sack over his head.
No
No
what?
hockey mask on Jason.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
that's like
right.
such the iconic look. And
It is.
part 1 kind of, I don't know. But rewatching it, I was like, oh man, I mean, for what it did, it was, pretty fantastic. It's an independent film made for $500,000 and went on to become,
Wow.
iconic series. But that first one is just by the numbers, and even like the kills that they do, it's like and then they show an axe in that. So I feel like as the first movies go, that first Nightmare on Elm Street was far superior. That was just freaky as hell. The girls jump roping, Freddy coming from that just freaks you out. And
Like,
my opinion, one of the horror movies of all time.
and look, not just being a complete wrestling mark here, but you're out of your mind if you don't think those Undertaker videos, he's coming and things like that, did not start from that jump roping scene, or the kid singing 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Yeah,
it makes it more eerie. It just does.
Yeah. So Matt, I was talking about this with Raj, who did not have the same childhood that I think you and I had in some ways. But do you remember on the schoolyard, before there were cigarettes, before there were drugs, before there was sex, the badass factor as a little kid in the 80s was, oh my God, I saw Friday the 13th, part 3, and there was this kill. I don't know if you could handle it, man, but I watched it. And yeah, man, It was bloody. It was scary. But people would talk about this, and we talked about Faces of Death, which Raj had heard about as a kid. But that was the one where it was like, you were the most hardcore badass if you could handle watching Faces of Death.
Yes, absolutely. And like for me, I always thought like I was one of the older kids by being able to say I saw this.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street, for example, and I was so cool because the kids in my grade, a lot of them were not allowed to go watch it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
No, I remember every kid would brag about R-rated movies. My big memory, and I didn't see this movie till 3 years ago. I remember in the early 80s, some kid was like, I watch R-rated movies. I saw Gorky Park the other night. And I was like, oh, what's this Gorky Park movie? And then I watched it. And I'm like, it's this dull murder mystery that takes place in Russia, but it happens to be rated R. It's like, just if you were watching R-rated movies and you were like up to the 4th grade, like you were cool. You were hardened,
Yeah. Yep.
I had never seen a R-rated movie until high school in the theater. Like I think the first one I saw was Candyman.
You never wait. That was scary, by the way. You were not wait. You never snuck into an R-rated movie like after watching a PG movie with your friends?
R-rated movies, yes. Like I saw Rambo in the theater, a couple of those, but not horror. Yeah. But they were like strict at the theaters where I was growing up, where they had people at the front and roaming the hallway so you couldn't sneak into another movie. So it was
stinks. Ours was wide open once you got past that popcorn, area.
I remember the worst was when you would go see an R-rated movie and like your parent would buy the tickets, but they made them go in and sit with you. So one was Freddy's Dead. A friend's mom had to go and sit in that with us. They wouldn't let her. They were made sure she didn't leave the theater. She didn't sit near us. But the worst, and I've told this story before, was I loved River Phoenix, so I wanted to see A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon. So my mom bought the ticket, and they were like, "You have to go accompany your child." And I sat next to my mom watching like the most explicit, like every scene is talking about sex, having sex. Hey, we're planning to go have sex. I'm sitting there right next to my mom during the entire thing. It was one of the most mortifying experiences of my life.
Oh, I bet.
But I've never told this story before. I only really ever snuck into a movie without paying once as a kid, and we saw Transformers the movie.
The first one when we were kids, right?
First one, yeah.
Yeah, I cried.
And the next theater was Flight of the Navigator playing at the same time.
More importantly, did you cry at the end of the Transformers?
Yes, it was sad. It was very sad. And I was like, ooh, and Judd Nelson's a voice in this. Like, this is cool. And the Stan Bush, the touch. I mean, it was great. But I didn't want to go home. I was still digesting Transformers, and my friend was like, let's go into Flight of the Navigator.
So our movie theater was hooked up to our shopping mall.
Okay.
And back in the day, going to malls was like the rage. Like on Friday nights, if you were in like middle school, you'd go mess around in the food court and stuff like that for like 2 or 3 hours while your mom and dad would put you there. Is either they go home and come back for you or they go shopping, right? So they would usually, my parents just drop us off and then come back later after the movie is supposed to be done and then pick us up. And so I remember calling like, oh yeah, we're going to go to the mall. It's connected. It's no big deal. We're walking over to the mall. We're going to get something to eat. go mess around at, I think it was like a record store.
Yeah,
Those were very big, right?
Yeah.
And get a new Motley Crue pin for my sweet jean jacket. But and not do that, and not just go into an R-rated movie and for another 2.5 hours or an hour and a half.
Well, I was always Mr. Paranoid. So we watched Transformers, snuck in a fight in the Navigator, packed theater, and I'm convinced like somebody saw us come in here, man. We're gonna get busted, man. I can't do it, man. I'm gonna crack and I can't go out through the front because they're gonna interrogate me. So I see the exit sign right near the screen. And I'm like, I'm gonna go out through there. I opened the door.
What was it? Daytime? Really quick, was it daytime?
It was daytime.
Oh, Glenn!
Sunlight goes into the theater. A siren starts going off. The only time in my life I have ever crapped my pants was at that moment, and I sprint across the parking lot to run away. I found out later from my friend who stayed in the movie, they had to stop the movie. The fire marshal had to come in. People were pissed off. It was a whole thing. I never got in trouble for it. I never got caught. But I went home and I was like, the police are going to come here any minute, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be in so much trouble for this. And that was like the most terrified I was as a young child.
The first time.
Your friends didn't stop you and tell you this was going to happen?
I was with one friend and he was like, screw you, pussy. I'm staying for the movie. You want to leave, you leave. He didn't know I was going to go out he didn't know I was going to go out the exit door. He thought I was going to go out the front, like a normal person. But no. And it was a traumatic childhood memory that still haunts me to this day.
The first time I switched movies where we bought tickets and went to something else, this girl I was dating, it was for Basic Instinct, and they were like strict on that. Like they were checking IDs. They were treating it like you're buying alcohol.
Yeah, same where I live.
Yeah, couldn't get in. So me and this girl I were dating, I think we got like tickets to Beauty and the Beast or My Cousin Penny or something like that. We went in. And that's stuck in the other theater. And same thing, Glenn. I was just so paranoid every time someone was coming in. I'm like, oh no, they got us. And just the whole movie, just in constant paranoia, worried that we were going to get busted.
Can I just say something while we're on the subject of Basic Instinct? How was that an iconic scene looking back today in 2023? A woman unparts her legs, and remember, go back in time. That was they consider that an iconic scene in movie history.
Right.
Like, I'd say in the 90s. Remember?
Well,
late 90s?
Yeah. Well, it was early. I was like 91, but you normally didn't see that in an R-rated film.
Years afterwards, I'm talking about when they would show clips of different magical moments in movies, and that would be on it.
Yeah. Well, I think it was because, so the lore of that scene is very interesting. At the time it came out, Sharon Stone was seen as like, oh, can't believe she had the bravery, the guts to do this, be so poised.
Major star showing her private parts.
Yeah. And so that was it. But then in later years, she said, oh, I didn't know they were filming when they did it. Like Joe Esterhaus, and Paul Verhoeven kind of like conned me into doing this. Like the story changed a little bit, but people still look at that scene for what it was, because I think it was just so shocking that like, if you're watching that movie, like if you're watching any movie, from the 80s or 90s, there's always levels of nudity that you would see. And even in some movies, we talked about like Elizabeth Shue in Cocktail, like she's topless, but she's seen from behind, or you see a little bit from the side. And you would occasionally see like full frontal nudity. Male nudity you would almost never see. But to have that level of like explicit female nudity at the time was like, holy shit. And then after that, which I don't think the world was clamoring to see, but was like Harvey Keitel and Bad Lieutenant, I think, where it's like full frontal male nudity. I was like, okay, that barrier's been broken down now. It's interesting the way people are with it, but Basic Instinct, I mean, R-rated movies in general, they used to take seriously. What's funny though, Raj, to your point about paranoia and what we're talking about with people like checking everything, I had a lot of friends that worked at movie theaters, probably starting around the time Basic Instinct came out, and that continued through the 90s. And it was funny that most people that worked at movie theaters did not give a shit. Kids buying R-rated movie tickets, whatever. People sneaking into movies, maybe they're buying more popcorn. But at every theater, there was like one employee who was like the Dwight Schrute, who it was his job to save the theater, $3 and wanted to bust everybody.
So part of that is at my movie theater, there's always a police officer outside. His ticket lines were very long sometimes, and for some stupid reason, I always thought like the cops were like kind of in on it. Like they would know if I went and bought an R-rated ticket and I'm underage, they're gonna know, and I'm gonna be carted off the jail or something like that. Like,
could you imagine down at the precinct, the captain, and I'm just picturing Inspector Todd from the Beverly Hills Cop series, just being like, Axel, while you're out there doing your shenanigans, Matt Morgan bought a ticket to Basic Instinct, and they sold it to him, and he went in and saw, do you care about your badge?
They're like going in for a drug bust, and they get the call on the walkie-talkie, like, hey, we got a movie break-in. There was one time, there was a snowstorm, and me and a buddy of mine, we went to see, I think it's like my best friend's wedding. And then afterwards, we snuck into U.S. Marshals. And so we watched 2 movies, for the price of one. Get out. The movie theater is locked up. We couldn't get out. And so we had to go through the fire exit. And that was one time when the fire alarm went off, and we just ran off. I don't know if the cops showed up and fire trucks, but it was in the middle of a storm. So
that's crazy.
It probably didn't. Yeah.
But back to the matter at hand. So Friday the 13th came out at the very beginning of the 1980s. It feels like a 70s film in many ways, the original.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street came out 84.
It's amazing if you look at those two, how much more, and granted, Friday the 13th was originally an independent film, but just how much more advanced Nightmare on Elm Street was as far as the special effects. And, you had the girl in the ceiling, and, just their visual effects were really ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
In fact, sorry, Matt.
Which one was the Nightmare on Elm Street where Freddy's face was all over like the pepperoni pizza?
4.
That made me not like pizza for about 6 months, by the way. You guys don't know how scared of this guy I was. I was crying. I was terrified of him. I'd watch all the movies like an idiot, making it worse. But
oh yeah, well, okay. So let's go chronologically on Nightmare, because I think we both agree that's the better series.
Yes.
Like Friday the 13th, that we'll talk about it. But Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one came out in 84. Genuinely terrifying film. Wes Craven. Freddy was dark, grimy, mean. This was not funny Freddy that we got later. Fun fact, that scene where Tina's being dragged all over the room, and that was the one I remember hearing people talk about at school. It's like, oh, it's so scary, man. You can't even see the killer and yada, yada. They built a spinning room for that to shoot that. And so they mounted the camera. The camera was hard mounted to the room. Amanda Weiss was literally being spun on this contraption, on this gimbal, and she was moving all over, acting like she was being killed. And that's how they got it to look like she was on the ceiling, being dragged up the wall, all of that, because the camera was stationary. Now, that same spinning room they used for the dance sequence with Turbo and Break Into Electric Boogaloo, when he starts dancing on the ceiling. Yeah.
That's another one of my favorite movies of all time, by the way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exact same set. Yeah, they redressed it, but it's the same gimbal they built, the big box. So, and Nightmare on Elm Street, yes, as Jason Voorhees appropriately named in the chat's pointing out, also independent, New Line Cinemas. It's really, they called New Line Cinemas for many years the house that Freddy built up until Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because all that Freddy money paid for everything New Line did in the 80s. So the first one came out, surprise hit. Wes Craven originally didn't want there to be a sequel. The studio insisted on that ending with the car and the convertible and the mom, and was it a dream or wasn't? That was a studio insistence. But I mean, the first film is damn near perfect as far as horror movies go, as far as any movie goes. And Heather Langenkamp is so amazing as Nancy, young Johnny Depp as Glenn. That was the first time I ever saw somebody with my name in a movie. It freaked me out as a kid. Yeah, it was a big deal.
The ending was perfectly creepy. Like the car, the roof of the car had the Freddy Krueger sweater, look.
Oh yeah.
It was awesome. And one thing I really liked with that also was Robert Englund, just how amazing he was as Freddy Krueger. Because that one that they did without him, where they had a different guy playing Freddy Krueger.
Haley.
Yeah, you could just see the difference, in charisma and everything between the two. It's not like you could just wear that makeup and be Freddy Krueger. He's like the one and only that could really pull it off at that level.
Yeah.
I mean, everything he did also was like his own gimmick, was his own shtick, was his own calling card. Even like with the Freddy, we've all done this with the Freddy Krueger hand, how he used to go like perfectly like that. Like he had so many like calling cards.
Well, and it blew my mind that he was also on V as Willie, the friendly alien.
Yes, I knew that, and I recognized it. By the way, I swear to God, that helped me a little bit because my brother tried to point that out to me because I loved the V series. It was on Friday nights. I'll never forget V. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what's funny though? When the first Nightmare came out, I think maybe I heard whispers of it, but a year later, when Freddy's Revenge Nightmare on Elm Street 2 came out, New Line promoted the hell out of that. And I remember seeing that trailer, like whenever I would watch Friday night videos, I would watch the late night UHF stations, and that trailer would creep me out and I have trouble sleeping.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It was super scary.
And there was something with those 80s movies where the footage is all grainy. It's not like all clean and HD like it is today. That gave it that extra layer of creepiness, and that's why the old Nightmare on Elm Streets are, just that much scarier than the newer ones that they did.
Yeah, I mean it looks like the graininess it just adds to that sense of like realism, pseudo realism. It makes it much scarier. And I think part 2, I didn't see part 2 until later, and I remember it's a controversial one, is that it doesn't feel, it feels the least in the continuity of Nightmare on Elm Street. It's like somebody moves into Nancy's house. You've got a boy protagonist instead of a female protagonist. And it's actually really interesting. I mean, we don't have to get into all, there's documentaries, there's so many articles about this, but in hindsight, it's actually been celebrated as like Mark Patton, who played Jesse Walsh, was like the first male scream queen. And a lot of people are like, oh, this was a very it was a very homoerotic take on Freddy Krueger. And when you watch it now, you definitely can see that. And I understand why a lot of people celebrate the film for that reason, because it's very different.
I need to watch that one again then.
Yeah, it's really different. It's really different than the other movies, but it was very popular at the time. It made more money than the first one, which is why we got a part 3, and they got Wes Craven back for Dream Warriors, which in my mind, look, I love the first Nightmare. I've seen it a million times, but I could go to watch Dream Warriors anytime.
Yeah, that's what I watched before we did this podcast again.
Yeah.
That was my favorite one.
I think that's the first one I saw.
Yeah, well, because that would have been the right time, right? It was like, was that 86, 87?
Right.
Like we all knew about it. We all heard about it. And I remember, because I was scared. I don't think I'd seen the first 2 movies yet. I'd heard about them, but I was afraid. So I remember they came out with a novelization of parts 1, 2, and 3. And I was like, well, if I read this first and I know what's going to happen, I won't be as scared. So I remember that summer, like my family was traveling. I remember reading it and then watching the movies. But yeah, part 3, before we got real comic book movies made, part 3 is the closest thing to an X-Men, New Mutants, Marvel superhero movie with the kids and their superpowers and their dreams.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
So good. It's such a good movie. I cannot say enough good things about it. Just the atmosphere, the pace, and the fact they got Heather Langenkamp back as Nancy. Like, that movie is probably, in my top 3 favorite horror movies of all time.
Yeah.
Freddy is funny, scary, all of it.
Yes. He's all packaged in that. He still he doesn't lose his scariness. The only thing that helped me a lot as a little kid, again, was the ability to know that I can now control my dreams. That means for everything. So like those dreams that I would have falling off of a building, right? And you're in mid-flight falling down, or and you're gonna die because you fell off a bridge. So something weird like that, or you're drowning. Like I used to have crazy dreams like that. And you think I'm crazy, but I learned how to not be so scared because I was a kid that was on Ritalin as a little boy, right? So I'd have these crazy dreams from it. And my brother and my mom telling me that, well, look, you can control your dreams off of that movie. And I'm not joking. I would try to, and some of them I could, especially if it was like a sports related dream, where I'm hitting a home run instead of, striking out butt naked in front of my whole entire school. You know what I mean? Or weird dreams. But it's serious. That movie was powerful as hell for me.
Yeah. It's incredible. I rewatched it last year. I feel like every probably once every 5 to 10 years, we watch all the Nightmare movies in a row. And what I love about that is picking up the continuity of the original. It's like I love the character Nancy. I love what they did with the Hypnosil, the idea there's a drug that suppresses your dreams. I like how they introduced that. I like the idea of Freddy's bones and everything they did with the holy water. I thought, for some reason, I will pop for any movie where they have to where they do it Monster Squad too. Any movie where you run into the church and you fill up the bottle of holy water and then leave.
Didn't Monster Squad fill up water pistols?
Water pistols, right? Yeah. But
so
I love that.
So you said top 3 horror movies of all time. That makes it Dream Warriors.
I think Dream Warriors in the top 3. I mean, but it's almost
what else
beyond.
would you put?
Well, I mean, Jaws is incredible.
If you count, I don't count that as.
I don't put that, even though I was scared crapless that summer to go in the water, which I guess does the point of it. I never thought of it as horror though.
I mean, I still don't go in the water. I won't go in a swimming pool at night because of Jaws. Like if I can't see the bottom, I'm not in there, man. You know?
That's true. You know what? We had an above ground pool where I'm from in Connecticut. And at nighttime, I wouldn't go. You're right.
That's my point. So Raj, it's not a horror movie, but it has it's still a lifelong fear in people.
Like, have you seen Open Water?
Yeah, I've seen parts of Open Water. Yeah,
that movie, because that's about sharks too.
Yeah.
And getting stuck in the middle of the ocean.
Well,
that's more of a horror movie.
Well, let's name them. So my horror movies are going to be the main meat and potato ones: the Freddys, the Jasons, the Leatherfaces, etc. I'm going to go with so Dream Warriors for me is my ultimate, my number 1.
Yeah.
But I'd go 2, Friday the 13th, Part 3 as well. I thought 3 was good. And then the original Leatherface.
Wow.
Texas Chainsaw. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, you missed Raj, who may have had a beverage, an adult beverage or 2 Monday night, claimed there were only 8 great horror movies ever made. Ever. And he said, what was it? The Shining.
The Shining is my number 1.
A Nightmare on Elm Street. Joyride with Paul Walker.
Yeah, that is. If that counts. Scream.
Psycho. Oh, the Scream. And he said at the time he couldn't remember the other 4. So Scream, we've got 1.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Psycho deserves me, and I should have probably.
Psycho's really good.
I should have put that in there.
But even
what
Psycho,
else? Can you name more than 8?
Yeah, I mean, Rosemary's Baby is fucking creepy as hell.
Yeah. Well, the Pinhead movies what were they called? Those were
Hellraiser.
Those were terrifying.
Exorcist.
Exorcist.
Oh God, yes.
There's more than 8. I was.
Yeah. I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've never successfully made it through watching the first one all the way. I'm just like, this is just too heebie-jeebies. It looks too real. Like it just really freaks me out. Like it's so gritty and grimy. I mean, watch the original Last House on the Left, which was Wes Craven also did. Like that's also just like this feels like
That's what I thought they're both very similar to. Actually,
yeah,
I always thought that. I was terrified of that movie too. By the way, Glenn.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. So I think there's a lot of great horror, but for me, no, I think Nightmare 3 definitely up there. Jaws definitely up there. It's tough to really pick a third one. I mean, there's a lot of horror movies that I love, but I love them for different reasons.
Take out Jaws. Let's not count that. So Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Lifelong phobia because of it. But sure, it's not a horror movie.
I love the fact that you just pulled one of his top 3 out of his own top 3.
It's like, nah. That's like
I mean, Carrie is
like
really good.
That's like putting the Frighteners on there, with Michael J. Fox.
I mean, Carrie is a really scary movie and really good. But Carrie is also complicated because it's supernatural and it's got scares in it, but it's also like the protagonist of the movie is the bad guy. No, it's not really the bad guy, but yeah, it's a different type film. So I don't know. I mean, it depends on what the criteria is. Like in terms of just what terrifies me. I mean, that varies, and there's,
How about we narrow it down, Glenn, then to has to be a horror movie with a monsterish type of villain.
Okay. See, I mean, I think The Fly is really fucking terrifying with Jeff Goldblum. But think about
let's take that out too.
I was grossed out by it.
And it's sad. It's sad at the end when he wants her to kill him. Like to me, that's scary. Okay, there's 2 types of fear, right? It's like there's fear of like I'm afraid of the person, the creature, the monster, the situation. But then there's scary where it's like, oh my God, I can't even imagine what this would be like to have this happen to me. And it's so terrifying and sad and like haunting.
7 to me was haunting and upsetting. But I wouldn't count that as a horror movie,
So listen, you're in your neighborhood. You're with one of your friend's house. It's now dark. You're sprinting home, and I don't know about you guys, but I used to always in my head like, oh crap, Freddy Krueger, Jason, somebody's gonna be chasing me, and maybe run faster.
I'll tell you. You want to know what mine is?
That in your head.
Yeah. Okay. You guys are gonna believe this. You want to know what mine is? You know what I think when that goes through my head, Matt? Velociraptor is gonna get me.
Okay.
I
don't even find the Jurassic Park movie scary, but I find the Velociraptors terrifying.
All right, so I got The Shining, Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street. Boom. All 3 horror movies.
Scream's not really scary.
Not necessarily scary, but great.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
But it's great. Like my daughter, my oldest daughter, she loves that movie too. But just as far as greatest horror movies of all time, not scariest, but greatest.
Okay.
I put that up there.
I think that's what you're saying. So in my head, when you say greatest horror movies, it's me. I'm home by myself Friday night. Mom and dad are bowling. My brother's supposed to be babysitting me, but he's not. He's with his friends. It's 11 o'clock. They're still not back. And I got to get up and go pot. I got to like the potty in the middle of the night, right? So I go and I sprint to my bathroom, pee as quickly as I can, sprint back and jump into my bed as fast as I can because something's going to get me. That's in my head, again, what I would put for my top 3 movie choices.
Blair Witch, I think for me was that.
When I was older. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, watching the sequel that came out like 10 years ago or 7 years ago, like when they showed the Blair Witch for that scene, that like made the first movie even scarier to me.
It did. And that was a very frightening scene. Yes.
Yeah.
The first one is a classic. I remember seeing it in the theater like a second time. And the theater was full. We had to sit in the front seat and watching that in the front seat, looking up and all the camera shaking. It was like,
But Raj, I know you didn't see it, but dude, Hereditary has some stuff in it. The Hereditary that came out a couple years ago. I think about that. That's one of those middle of the night. Like if I think about that, I'm not falling back asleep.
What's Hereditary? Who's in that?
Toni Collette and then a bunch of people you've never heard of, but it's about a woman and her mom dies and then like weird stuff starts happening to her kids. Like that really freaked me out. That was very well done. Cause a lot of horror movies look, what was the one? Insidious, when that came out, like Insidious is super creepy up until you see Darth Maul. And then you're just like, that's Darth Maul, dude. Like, that's not that scary.
Insidious was terrifying though.
The first half was for me.
Yeah.
You know, but you also have to kind of buy into it. Like recently on Hulu, everyone was like, oh my God, you need to watch No One Will Save You. It's kind of like Signs. It's an alien invasion, a girl in her house, and there's no dialogue. And we watched that. We were like, we heard this is supposed to be kind of scary. So we turned the sound down a little bit. We turned on some lights and we were talking during, and it was like, this isn't scary. But if you sit there alone with the lights off and you buy in, then things can be a lot more terrifying.
Have you guys seen Wolf Creek?
I have not.
No.
So that I think would be the most unsettling, upsetting, effed up horror movie I've ever seen. And that movie, ever since my wife saw it, I think it came out like 2006, 2007. We used to watch horror movies together before that. After she saw that, she stopped watching horror movies completely.
Yeah.
It's messed up, but it is scary. It's freaky as hell. Wolf Creek.
We turned off Drag Me to Hell because we were like, this is a PG-13 movie and it was really gross and over the top. And then it would seem pretty obvious something bad was going to happen to the cat. So we were just like, we're not watching this anymore.
What's that movie that with the house invasion that has
Strangers? What's
the actress that was in what's her name? Very famous actress. She's
Liv Tyler, The Strangers.
No. Oh gosh, hold on. Give me a second. Go on.
Citizen Kane. No, sorry. So let's talk
about. She was
in
Mulholland Drive. The actress that was in that. Naomi Watts.
Funny Games.
Yeah, Funny Games. That movie was messed up because they like kill a kid in it, and that was pretty upsetting.
Yes. Let's talk about and Halloween, as is pointed out in the chat. You know, the original Halloween. Okay, here's the problem. You know what the first Halloween I saw was Halloween 3.
Oh.
Yeah, and that kind of soured me on the series.
But Halloween.
With that said, we're not getting enough love here to Michael Myers. Michael Myers is one of the all-time
absolutely
scary figures.
And Friday the 13th was a ripoff. Yeah, Friday the 13th was a ripoff of Halloween.
And Halloween and the reboot, that is the best original reboot combo I think there's been.
That was good. I remember really liking it in the theater when it came out. I do. What do you think of Busta Rhymes' performance?
Wait, Halloween? Was it H2O?
Yes.
I didn't see that one.
I saw that one. Dude, there were some bad horror scenes. Like the Halloween series probably has some of the worst sequels, and that's saying something compared to how bad some of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th or Halloween's had some of the wackest. Like it's a notch above Leprechaun in Space, and Leprechaun in the Hood, and Leprechaun goes back to the Hood.
But there's just something scary about a stiff figure just walking slowly with a huge butcher knife in his hand, and just man.
Yeah. Okay, so Nightmare 4. The Dream Master, the one you were talking about with the pizza mat, that's like the MTV Nightmare on Elm Street. Like
Yes.
Rennie Harlan, who would go on to do Die Hard 2, Hudson Hawk, and many other films, directed that. Nightmare on Elm Street 4 visually is one of the best looking horror movies of all time.
It is. I liked it. I know a lot of people like clown it. I don't know why. I thought it was good, and it did a lot more in my head like after the movie was done for the next year.
Yeah,
of random stuff
good.
stuck in my head that I'm scared of.
It's a good movie, and I love the continuity. I love the continuity with part 3. It's a bummer that Kristen, Joey, and Kincaid all get killed in like the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not a movie, but did you guys ever watch Dexter?
No.
Hell yeah. Dexter, you didn't watch Dexter the series, Glenn?
I didn't watch cable for like 10 years.
Glenn,
I've heard it's good. I've heard it's good.
It's on Showtime. You can watch it on your phone or an app. You will love this series.
I've heard it's very good.
I promise.
In season 4 of Dexter, I don't know if it's necessarily scary, but it's very unsettling. You know, and at the end with the girl in the tub and.
Okay, yeah, but like no different than True Blood in that regard. It's just very entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was never scared of Dexter, Maureen. Were you?
But,
part 4, like, you know, it was kind of like something that's in your head after you see it. That season, especially the end of the season 4 finale. I remember like couldn't sleep that night. It was.
You scared of the Trinity killer? Are you, Raj? The Trinity?
No, the kid, the little baby in the blood. And
I mean, that's a whole. We should do an episode just about like twist endings or haunting endings because there's a lot of stuff we could go and do there. But the thing I want to talk about in part 4, though, in part 4, there's a sequence. And Matt, I don't know when you watched part 4 last, but there was that scene before the cockroach death where when Alice and Dan are trying to get to her and they keep going in a loop again and again and they can't get there.
Yes.
That is the most accurate experience of having a stress dream I have ever seen on film.
100%. Who hasn't had that kind of dream where it's
so brilliant?
Very well done and very, very like I thought like this again, special effects I thought were friggin' really, really well done.
Yeah, it's so part 4 is great. Introduces Alice as the main protagonist that carries over into part 5, the Dream Child. Weaker. There's like 4 deaths in the entire movie. There's the bulimia death, though, the eating disorder death, which is still like one of the grossest things.
Yes, it is.
That I've ever seen.
Yep.
But it's solid. Alice gets her happy ending at the end, having a child that's not possessed by Freddy, and it was played by that weird kid that was in everything, who was on like Full House, and like if you see him, you'll know him. I can't remember his name, but he was like the weird. He always was cast as the weird kid in everything.
Okay.
But then part 6, Freddy's dead. Johnny Depp comes back from a cameo. Tom Arnold and Roseanne are in it in a cameo.
That was more of a comedy.
Kind of. Young Breckin Meyer is in it. And then it had the 3D ending with Yaphet Kotto explaining you need to put these glasses on, these 3D glasses on, they'll protect you in the dream.
So, okay. I'm not gonna lie. When it came out, I thought that was cool. I was in the theater with that when that happened. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
It wasn't scary at all, but it was funny. It was entertaining.
I don't know. The kid with the hearing aid death, the kid with the hearing aid, that's one of the meanest Freddy deaths ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call, Glenn. Good memory.
Yeah.
I was gonna say one last thing though, guys. You got to remember at this stage in our lives, depending on how terrified of Freddy Krueger you were. I wanted to go to these movies. Yeah, they were getting a little bit corny, not cornier, but more funny. Freddy was getting very charismatic, had these catchphrases and, you know, and things like that. I liked it simply because it was making me less and less scared of him. I was getting stronger, more confident. So like, you have no clue how scared of this guy I was.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. And then a few years later, Wes Craven came out with part 7, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. That was Scream before Scream. Commenting on horror movies, had Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp as themselves. There was a new Freddy. Like, I get that movie and I understand what he's going for. I think it's gotten better with age. But when that first came out, I was like, what is this?
I remember thinking the same thing. It was a little bit above it was a little over my head, if I remember correctly. Also, really quick, sidebar. Do you guys remember the Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street, the series?
The series, yes. Yeah. Which Freddy only appears, he's at the beginning and end, but he only appeared in like 8 of the episodes across 2 seasons. We tried watching that after we watched all the movies a year or 2 ago, and it was bad, dude. Like you can find them online, but it's hard to make it through some of the entire episodes. Like the acting is bad, but Brad Pitt's in an episode. There's a lot of people before they were famous.
Yeah, the acting is bad, and I do remember that part.
And a lot of the stories are bad, but it's better than Friday the 13th, the series, which had nothing to
Yes.
do with the movies.
Literally nothing.
Nothing. They were cursed antiques. All the kids that love Jason want to see a show about a cursed stopwatch. And then we finally, though, as teased in Jason Goes to Hell, we got Freddy versus Jason 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Which was good. It wasn't scary, but it was good.
It wasn't scary, but you're right. It was good. So there's two iconic, that's King Kong versus, Godzilla.
Yeah.
Any of those versus movies are always good. Or always interesting. Like you always want to see who wins, but they never really have a real winner. Like this one, Freddy versus Jason. I mean, Jason technically won, but then you saw, Freddy was laughing about it. So,
yeah,
I always thought they were going to do another one.
So, look, I can't believe I'm about to say this sentence. In real life, Freddy Krueger would destroy Michael Myers. Michael Myers has to go to sleep at some point.
Yeah,
and that's it. Game over. Freddy can do anything to you in your dreams. Anything.
Yeah. And I liked how
Jason
they did that with
dream.
Yeah, well, I liked how they did that with Jason, where he was controlling him through his dreams and manipulating him. I thought it was clever. Like, they wrote a lot of scripts for that were going to bring back, like, Tommy Jarvis from Friday the 13th or Alice or Nancy. So it's interesting what they went with, but I liked it. It's fun. They should have done more, but it's cool that it finally happened, because as kids, we talked about that. Going back to Nightmare 3, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if Freddy fought Jason? Who would win? So to finally see that was awesome.
Yep.
So that came out, and that did really good business. It's shocking they didn't do another one. But then, as happens with all reboots, they rebooted Nightmare on Elm Street back, 2010. Huh. They went for a darker, grimier Freddy. They got Jackie Earle Haley, who played Kelly Leak. Yeah, he played Kelly Leak. Jackie Earle Haley, who played Kelly Leak in the Bad News Bears when we were kids, and then grew up to play Rorschach in Watchmen. And become a serious actor after his re-debut, played a much meaner, not funny Freddy Krueger, whose makeup looked more like real burn victims. It wasn't as cartoonish. And they made this dark movie that in many ways I think worked, except for the fact all the special effects and dream sequences have a ton of CGI that just immediately make it look like you're watching a video game.
So I don't remember this being advertised. I don't.
Yeah, it came out. It existed. It's a thing.
I gotta go find it.
But it didn't do so well that they didn't make sequels. So now there's talks that, again, we might get another reboot. Famously, Robert Englund is saying he can't do it again. He's too old to be physical as Freddy. Robert Englund's choice is Kevin Bacon, of who he wants to play Freddy Krueger.
He could do it.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Who was in the first Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Well, he also is very good at getting physically, like losing tons of weight, being super rail skinny, as we've seen in certain movies with him, just for the part to make it look more realistic. He'd be good, I think.
Yeah.
Robert Englund was in the last season of Stranger Things, and he was scary as hell in that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah. It was great. And I think it was Peter Jackson, who did Lord of the Rings, who said he had actually a very interesting idea for how to reboot Nightmare on Elm Street, which is the idea that everybody has their own trauma, their own fears, both real and imagined. So his idea for a reboot was that Freddy Krueger is a force, but he looks different to everybody. Like, because the idea of what scares you is different to everyone. So Freddy shouldn't have like one set form, which I thought was very interesting. But I would love to see a reboot of the series. I think the mythology is strong, and dude, like Dream Warriors is such a great concept. If you told me you were going to reboot Nightmare and just make it about people having superpowers in their dreams to fight Freddy, like in this age of superhero movies, I think that would be super successful.
I do too.
Yeah. And it'd be really good.
I'll let Chica giving you a little crap about Jaws.
Jaws is scary, dude. Jaws 2 is scary. Jaws 3 is cheesy but scary, and Jaws the Revenge isn't really scary, but
what's the one where the shark is out to get revenge?
That's Jaws 4, Jaws the Revenge.
Okay.
3 is in a water park, which, by the way, you know how they advertise walk through that shark tunnel everywhere? That's why I won't go through a shark tunnel, because I saw Jaws 3.
Yep.
Yeah,
yes.
You know what's up.
Yes.
Joseph Vendetti saying, I would love 1 week for you guys to talk about the Terminator movies. We got to.
Yeah.
Even though it's 1 and 2 for me. After that, there's no Terminators. But
TV series was incredible.
Yeah, never saw that.
Let's talk about Friday the 13th. First one is Jason's mom. It doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie. It's in the woods.
Yeah.
Jason shows up at the end.
Yeah, and they kind of, it kind of started off as almost like a whodunit, where like the people are recognizing who the killer was, but then at the end it's someone that you haven't been introduced to. So the lady that was Mrs. Voorhees, I thought she did a really good job. But outside of that,
yeah,
I agree with you though. She did do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the end when she's giving the explanation, that's actually the creepiest, scariest part of the film.
It is. Yeah.
Part 2, Jason is getting his revenge for people killing his mom.
Yep.
Puts a burlap sack over his head. And at the end, the final girl survives by putting on his mom's sweater and pretending to be his mom and talking to him and then killing him.
Smart. That was so smart.
Yeah. 3, Jason gets the hockey mask.
That's the first one I saw.
Yeah. And it's in 3D, as everything was in 1983.
Jason Voorhees in the chat.
Yes.
Friday the 13th 3D with popping eyeballs is the greatest 3D death ever. I never saw it in 3D.
Or like the axes being thrown.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool though. Especially back then, 3D was a huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite Friday the 13th is Friday the 13th, part 4, the final chapter, with Corey Feldman as a young Tommy Jarvis and Crispin Glover, who has an amazing dance sequence that he apparently improvised in the middle of the film.
I remember this. I swear to God. Yeah.
And I remember seeing it. I was like, why is George McFly in this movie? And he's still weird.
That's awesome. He is a great, weird character because he is kind of really weird in real life.
Yes, he is.
But part 4 is great. I'll watch part 4 anytime it's on. The kills are good. And Corey Feldman, I mean, I think we all agree that we would mark out for this as a kid. You put any movie with a kid that was like a likable kid that was near our age in it, and it was like, oh, now I have someone to relate to.
Yes. I'll say I liked almost every movie that kid was in. Same with Corey Haim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Part 5 opens with Corey Feldman for like 5 minutes.
Yep.
And then it's not Jason in the movie. It's someone pretending to be Jason, killing people at this like outpatient care facility. Which was scary, by the way. Yeah, it was. Part 6, though, brought back Jason, hence the subtitle Jason Lives. And that was better. Like that was, and I think that's the only time at Camp Crystal Lake we actually saw kids at Camp Crystal Lake was in part 6.
Yeah. They didn't kill any kids in that, right?
I don't think so. 6 is one I haven't seen as much, but my recollection was that it was decent. By the way, did you guys also have this? I was really scared to go to summer camp as a kid because of these movies and the movie Sleepaway Camp.
So I didn't do Sleepaway. I used to wet the bed. I'm not joking. I used to wet the bed until I was like, 11? So because of that, I could not do the sleepover thing because I embarrassed myself in front of one of my friends and they had to go tell everybody the next day at school. So no sleepover for Matt Morgan until I hit about 12.
But I remember going to sleepaway camp for a week and I was just like, we're all gonna die. This is all good. This is just gonna start at any point. I was like, we're just all gonna be murdered. It's gonna be terrible. And I was miserable at the time. I missed my family, I missed my cat. And then at the end, I was like, I guess this was okay.
I did have that for was it Cub Scout or Boy Scout camp? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it was 13 or 14. And that's a teenager year. I shouldn't have been scared, but I'm not gonna lie, I was.
Yeah.
Because of those movies. Because we were around a lake.
Yes. Also, I remember thinking at the time, I was like, but if it's a Red Dawn-like situation that happens, we're already in the woods. This is perfect. We can camp out here and fight the invaders.
For that, yes, but not like Michael Myers coming out of the dang woods and then just axing through my tent and beheading me.
Yeah. Friday the 13th, part 7, The New Blood. First one I saw in theaters. Literally, the pitch for this movie was, what if Jason Voorhees fought Carrie? So they had a girl with psychic powers that can move things with her mind fight Jason.
That was so cool.
Yeah. That was good. It was solid. It was a solid.
That was a great concept, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good to have Jason have some real competition. Then part 8 was Jason Takes Manhattan, which sounded amazing until you saw that they shot all of it in Canada and they don't even get to Manhattan until the last 30 minutes.
That was horrible. I'm just going to be honest. I was not scared at all by that movie when that came out.
Yeah.
I never saw that one.
Jason's on a boat at one point because they take the boat to New York.
It was super corny by comparison.
Yeah, it's super dumb. Friday the 13th Part 9, Jason Goes to Hell, is a weird movie. The idea is that Jason is a spirit, and they explain the way he keeps coming back is that he can hop bodies. He's like this weird slug-like creature that comes out and like jumps into other people's mouths and like takes over them.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a very weird movie. It's got Stephen Williams, who was Captain Fuller from 21 Jump Street, as a bounty hunter in it, who's tracking down Jason. And Aaron Gray from Buck Rogers and Silver Spoons, who's Jason Voorhees' daughter. Jason Voorhees' sister, pardon me, his sister.
Yeah.
In the film. And it's very different. It's kind of meh, but the cool part is when Jason dies at the end, you see Freddy's glove come out and take Jason's mask down to hell.
That was awesome.
Yes. I went and saw it twice just for that scene.
I remember going bonkers when that happened.
Yeah, I didn't know that was happening. Like, I hadn't read about that. That wasn't spoiled for me ahead of time. I used to read Fangoria. We're talking about going to the mall. I had my mall system. It's like I would eat at the food court, usually Taco Bell. I would go to Aladdin's Castle, which was the arcade, and then my stores where I'd go to the music store and I go to the bookstore and I go to the like software store that have video games. But in the bookstore, I would just stand there for an hour and read like Fangoria and Starlog and like different magazines that I was too cheap to buy or I didn't have money to buy. You know,
1,000%. The mall was a place to be. I'm telling you. So my spot was Orange Julius in the food court.
Now, did they really put egg whites in the Orange Julius?
I never knew. I just loved the way it tasted, those drinks, and they put melted cheese on their hot dogs, which I thought was the coolest thing ever.
Those were really good. I remember trying to make it at home, and it was just disgusting. Like putting orange. I was trying to put an orange in a milkshake, and
yeah. So then there was a long gap in Friday the 13th movies, and they were afraid to make another one because Jason had the Jason Freddy thing at the end. So they were like, what can we do that's not going to compete with Freddy versus Jason? So they said, I know, let's send Jason to space in the future.
It's the worst ever.
I love this movie, Matt.
No, you didn't.
I do.
Comedy, right?
Yeah, because it's like, there's Jason in space. We're in the future. Jason has been cryogenically frozen. Some researchers like bring him aboard their ship. He thaws out and then he just starts murdering everyone on this spaceship. And then the two parts that I love is that they beat him, but then he goes in the healing pad and he becomes Cyber Jason. That's all like buffed out and metallic and chrome. But what I love is to distract him, they turn on the holodeck and there's Jason back at Camp Crystal Lake. And there's these two topless girls that are like frolicking and they get in a sleeping bag. And Jason is like, well, I guess I better murder them. And it's the most over the top, like parody of itself death in the entire Friday the 13th series.
I seriously, I thought that was the worst. I was pissed. I would spend money on that.
I had stopped watching the series by that point.
A lot of people did, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I love that there's like the cyborg and the inventor that made the cyborg, and it's pretty clear he's having sex with his cyborg. Like, it's pretty clear.
You are giving this one way too much airtime. This one was horrid.
I've rewatched it so many times. It's fun. I think it's a fun movie. It's a dumb movie, but it's fun.
You're saying you think it was good, or did you laugh at it how badly stupid it was?
I mean, yes, it's dumb, but I mean, dude, they're all here's the difference between Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street, most of the time, you're like, this is really smart. This is really clever. This is really interesting. This is giving me something to think about. Friday the 13th, most of the time, it's kind of like, well, this is just dumb and over the top.
Yes, and a lot of it, to be fair, is again, meat and potatoes, just butchering. Versus, like, that's why Freddy was just a better heel, I always thought. Just was way deeper, made you think, and it was long lasting. That stuff was in my head for years. I'm talking like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And so I think, though, that it's kind of like how, wrestling, there's like the cheap pop, cheap heat gimmicks. I feel like that's Jason, whereas Freddy is like, holy shit, this guy's a monster heel that's just incredible, knows how to work the crowd.
Bloodline.
Yeah, it's true. So, no, I think Jason X, I'm not saying it's a great movie, but for me, like, I find it just very watchable because it's just the movies were so stupid by that point. It's like, let's put him in space. Why not?
Yes.
And then Freddy versus Jason. And then in 2008, 2009, they rebooted Friday the 13th. But the reboot is like a mix of the first 3 movies.
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of dark. It's kind of darker and meaner and grittier. Like it's not as
Is he wearing a hockey
cartoony.
mask at least?
He's wearing a hockey mask, yes.
All right.
That's good.
Yeah, but it's not as I don't know. It's it's kind of like what they did with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. It's not like as gory as that, but it's definitely got that darker edge. And there's been talks. I mean, they're going to do a Camp Crystal Lake series. They're going to do something that ties into Jason and bring it back.
Mhm.
There was a great video game 4 years ago that actually got shut down because the rights to Friday the 13th are now in dispute as to who actually owns it. But there was a video game where you could play, and they had all the counselors like 80s style. So you could either be one of like 8 camp counselors, or you could be Jason, and then you would just either try and escape Jason and beat him, or you'd be Jason trying to hunt everyone down. It was a great game.
Is Mrs. Voorhees? Is she in the reboot
At the very beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, we got 1 minute under 1 hour right now. Can we slide into some of the other conversations that I know a lot of our fans are going to want to talk about? Is that cool?
Yeah. Real quick, I did want to mention Suzanne Summers passed away today.
Yeah. Oh my God.
She was 76 years old. She had been battling breast cancer for
23 years.
23 years.
Yeah.
And an icon, Three's Company. My favorite time watching that. That was the first like sitcom that I got into in the growing up. And when she was on, Mr. Furley was on. Those were just the glory days. And then when she left, they brought in someone else. I stopped watching it.
Well, Cindy wasn't good. I mean, give Terry her credit, the third on Three's Company. But yes, Suzanne Summers was the OG.
Yeah.
Yes. And Mr. Roper, by the way.
Yeah, Mr. Roper, Mr. and Mrs. Roper. Man, Mrs. Roper was horny.
I like Pearly.
She
was the original Peg Bundy.
Mrs. Roper.
But Mr. Roper is the first to break that fourth wall
my
on
God.
TV by deadpanning the hard cam.
Yeah, true.
The best.
Yeah. No, I love Three's Company.
Our age, so many people first crush.
Yes.
Yes.
Suzanne Summers was incredible, and it's amazing that
Blondie or Suzanne Summers, I would say.
Yeah. And when you learn though what happened behind the scenes, how basically she got fired because she wanted to make as much money as John Ritter did, and they got rid of her. It's crazy. I mean, she sold like millions of those Thigh Masters.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
She did okay, man. She did okay, and she had Step by Step later as a series. She's the sheriff in First Run Syndication. But no, Susan Summers, a really interesting person. Just if you ever listen to interviews she's given or the life that she's led, and yeah, man, it's crazy. Just as we keep getting older, all these people that we loved in our childhood and teen years are passing on.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So that Raj brought it down with that.
Yeah. Thanks,
I might as well get that.
Great segue, Raj. So how can we do this? You tell me which of the two topics you guys want to discuss first.
Let's do Tony Khan.
So we want to set the table of what happened on Twitter, Glenn, or do you want me to?
I mean, you go for it, Matt. You give your crap.
So you want me to read the tweets real quick, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So Tony Khan, after they lost the ratings, he tweeted, "This week, 2 active decades-long rating streaks from 2 great legends were ended. With all due respect, until this week's head-to-head AEW on TBS versus WWE on USA, neither John Cena nor Undertaker had ever been on a WWE show with under 1 million total viewers, plus under 400K in the demo." And then after that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Really quick, dear Tony Khan, that's like being the world's tallest short person. Congratulations, dude. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
I had mentioned, I was like, up until that point, Edge had never been on a nationally televised cable show that did under 1 million viewers.
And not including Ring of Honor, of course. Neither did Daniel Bryant. Neither did John Moxley. Neither did half of the guys all the WWE stars that came to AEW. Chris Jericho. But I don't like that he's doing this because I want to continue to cheer AEW on. They need to be successful. A lot of my friends need jobs and will get jobs there if the ones that are still even there right now, making great money. He should not be out there as the face of their company. He's not out there wrestling. There's no money to be made by him doing all of these interviews and these tweets and everything like that. He needs to chill out and take a back seat. And God forbid, get one of his talents out there. Let MJF do his thing. He's fantastic out there on media and staying in character while he does it. He does it better than anyone in the business, actually.
Yeah.
He's got plenty of stars. Get them out there.
And then the next day, he tweets, "This weekend marks 1 year since Mayo Clinic saved my mom's life. Awesome. Great tweet so far. I had sent him a message last year saying, that's great to hear about your mom. She pulled through, obviously, and praising Mayo Clinic. But then he goes, during her ordeal, many AEW talent came to me alleging WWE tampering, including them to break their contracts. I'll never forget these phone calls at her side in the hospital. It's when business became personal for me." So bringing WWE into a tweet where he's talking about the Mayo Clinic saving his mom's life.
So I'm not in his head. I'm not in his body. I'm not in his life. So I don't know if he's telling the truth or not, right? So we have to assume he is, because that's disgusting if that's not the truth,
Sure.
right?
I'm sure he is.
Obviously. Yeah. So I didn't see that tweet. So I don't know what to say. I'm just hearing it for the first time you reading it. But what I mainly wanted to discuss was, again, him going way overboard and trying to find these mini wins within wins within wins within wins. According to my calculations, from 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock and 32 seconds, we were only 600,000 viewers behind them, which has never been done. Come on, stop, dude. It's when you're number one, you don't sweat number two. You don't even bring up number two, right?
Right.
So I get that he thinks he needs to take pot shots at the big monster that is WWE. But when he does that, there's those of us that were cheering AEW on to legitimately beat WWE one day, right? We all want, I would imagine, want to see that happen because it's good for the business. But when he does things like this, it makes people not like him, and then by proxy, maybe not like the product. And it hurts the talent that's on that show. He needs to stop. Get these guys on the air or on these interviews and podcasts. Let them take over. Let them do their interviews, because he gets put in these positions like I saw on the Dan Le Batard show, where they're asking him about the situation with CM Punk. Hey, what really happened? And he would not give them anything. And Dan Le Batard, you could tell, is friends with Tony, okay, with a connection from football and soccer, I'm guessing, over the years. Telling him outright, for those that don't know, Dan Le Batard is a good sports talk show. I've watched it for years back when he was on ESPN. But with that said, they could tell they're friends, and he was still, you could see, getting pissed off that Tony's not giving him anything. He goes, Tony, you're giving me everything you give all these other podcasts, all these other talk shows. Give me something different. Tell me just one small detail about it. And Tony wouldn't budge, and he looked, his eyes were all bugging out of his head like they always are, and just over the top, just I'm not going to even say charismatic, just something like he just took like 5 fat burners and just like super energetic, but would not give him anything, about the CM Punk scenario. I'm sure there's reasons for it, but that's why he should not be doing these interviews. Because if you're an interviewer, what else are you going to talk to this guy about?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to talk to him. I want to talk to the stars of that damn show, not him. I want Adam Copeland on my show and say, hey, what's the difference between the two companies? Go tell me. Yeah. How come he's not been doing? How come they have him out there doing any?
Yeah, Ariel Helwani, I remember he said that Tony Khan was the worst interview he ever did because he kept dodging questions. And I feel like when he goes on these shows beforehand, he has to tell him, like, I can't talk about CM Punk, so please don't ask, because legally I can't discuss it at all. But it's a bad. It does look like he's just skirting questions when he's constantly just brushing him off.
And it brings the interview down and it hurts the company. I don't get it. Like, I don't know.
And the tweet with the Mayo Clinic and WWE, it just makes it seem like it's really got to him. Like they really got in his head. And the best thing would have been just let it go, move on, and fight another day. But
like, you just did this great card and with great numbers, attendance numbers at Wembley. Like that like, you don't have to like constantly be trying to act like there's some nonsensical invisible war that does not exist, by the way, between the two companies. Not yet. We want them to get there, but like when he does things like this, it in my opinion, it makes them go backwards. It makes them look like a Ring of Honor and companies like that every once in a while try to take a shot at WWE online because they know all the internet guys and gals are going to love it and make sound bites out of it and clickbait and stuff like that. It's not what a major league company would do. It's not what the Yankees do when talking smack about the Red Sox. They don't do that.
No. No, it's like in his head he thinks he's cannabis, but in this case, LL isn't even bothering to respond, which just makes it even sadder.
Great analogy. I love that. I love that beef.
Yeah.
But that's what he thinks. He's like, oh, I'm gonna burn him with this one, and it's just like WWE's like, whatever, we don't care.
Well, in the 90s, when I realized that WCW had arrived and they were really a threat was when they started doing the Nacho Man Huckster, when WWE started acknowledging WCW and brought them to their, kind of brought them to their level. So WWE is doing the smart thing. They're not even acknowledging it. They're just laughing it off, and moving on. AEW
is not even doing TNA Impact number. I mean, Impact peaked at 3 million. What was it?
2 million.
Well, it was 2.2. It settled the number, but the peak I think was 3 for that Hogan episode.
But we were consistently for about a 2-year window there, maybe even 3. We were on Spike. We were always over 1 million viewers. Always.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And AEW, I mean, granted the TV landscape just changed, but I don't know. It just feels like I mean, this sounds like the most obvious thing. I wish he put this much attention and his effort into booking good storylines and getting
the matches are great.
Interested. Yeah, the matches are. I mean, dude, in wrestling, the matches are phenomenal overall right now.
Once the bell rings, it's hard to argue their matches are not the best. Mm-hmm. It's a very hard argument to make. WWE has a few matches per show that are really good. Yes.
It's just funny though. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So if you watch the wrestlers on Netflix and you look at what Al Snow is doing for OVW, I feel like Al Snow obsessively puts more time into his storylines for promotion that now thankfully is selling out 400 seats a week. Yeah. But he's putting more time, effort, and energy into just focusing on making a good product. Whereas TK is like not obsessively paying attention to what's going on. He's good at hiring talent, but it's like he doesn't know how to utilize them.
Yeah.
Not a bad point. And again, it sucks because anytime you say something negative about AEW, people, it's like, oh, you're a hater on AEW. If you think that's true, go on my Twitter timeline. Go on my Twitter timeline, people, and tell me. Or when I used to be on the Wink podcast, talk about wrestling. I was their biggest fanboy, so I'm friends with the Bucks, and I wanted to see them do well. The company that then, along with others, started. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's not a case of it at all. So, just if anybody's watching this from AEW. Tell your boss I know it's not easier said than done, right? Because he's your boss, but he's no Vince McMahon. You can't go to Vince McMahon and tell him something like this, right? You most certainly can grab some of you main eventers, can grab Tony aside and be like, brother, what are you doing? Chill out. This is not helping us. I came here from WWE as a huge star to help this organization out. When you're doing things like this, it doesn't help. Him being at the scrum the entire time, like a fanboy, does not help. It hurts. I swear to God, it hurts.
No, it feels special when Triple H comes out at the end of those press conferences.
Yeah, and gives like the overall numbers and does the stuff. That'd be great. If Tony came in and did that, that'd be great because he's great with analyticals and numbers. Everyone knows that. But not every single segment of it with all the guys and gals that come up there to speak, where all he does is just go bananas over how great they are. Like, we don't need to see that because it loses its luster. And he's going to say great things about no matter what talent comes on out there. And it kills the context of it where I just want to see the star of who's coming out to the scrum from their match to talk about it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree.
He should not be their front man, if you will. Yeah. He just should not be. He should be the owner of the band, right? And get your Vince Neil out there, right? And let Vince Neil do what Vince Neil does, or Nikki Sixx or whomever. Got him over.
So I think kind of segueing after that, but I agree 100%. Yesterday also, I think was the first time ever, and correct me if I'm wrong, that after a shoot boxing fight that someone called out a wrestler, for a kayfabe title, where Logan Paul, Dillon Danis dominated him. It was a terrible fight. It was a farce. And then afterwards, he challenged Rey Mysterio for the U.S. title, which was
awesome. That was the only good part. That was the only good part of that fight.
The whole fight was Dillon Danis doing this.
He's not exaggerating. For those of you who didn't see that, that's exactly what Dillon Danis did the entire fight. He tried to get a couple shots. I think he threw 11, landed 11, something like that, compared to like Logan Paul's 90 something, if not 100. He eventually hit. He tried to take him down. Friggin' people forget Logan Paul's an all-state amateur wrestler. He stuffed it. And then he tried to put him in a front face lock and then go down on the ground and try to bring Logan Paul down with him. That failed. Logan was able to get him off and punch him on the ground while he was on his back. He tried to cheat, tried to do everything he could. And what sucked about it was Dillon Danis like tripled or quadrupled his Twitter following because of his world-class, like it or not, his world-class trolling that I thought, if I'm being real, was over the top, going in on Logan's fiance, and people made jokes and memes. And in the beginning, people thought they were funny. I remember just thinking, like, he better deliver. All this ish he's talking, he better deliver. And not only did he not deliver, he looked like a coward out there, covering his face the entire time and not throwing punches while Logan was just going off on him. Logan looked like a prize fighter compared to him. And while people are like, oh, he's not really a boxer, man. Logan Paul's not really either. He's just he trains for these fights, but he's not like a trained classical boxer or something like that. Yeah. So, like, if you're going to talk smack like that, the moral of the story is you better back it up in the ring, because he got he got embarrassed. He got clowned big time. The arena completely flipped huge. And I liked Ariel Helwani's and Jonathan Coachman's comparison to Rocky IV, when Rocky flipped the Russian crowd to start cheering for Rocky by the end of the fight, right? Same thing happened here. Everyone was chanting for Dillon in the beginning of this, because Logan's historically hated by everybody online, it feels like to me. And now they flipped it by the end of that fight, and he humiliated himself. That was horrible. If somebody that bought that fight, you guys got ripped off. I'm glad I stayed and watched it on YouTube after.
Yeah, Logan Paul, he threw 330 punches, landed 108. Yeah,
he landed 108.
Yeah, landed 108, and Danis landed 16.
Well, it's not a complete wash, you know.
Right? Yeah, at least he got some in, but.
Damn. No, it is. It was horrible. Glenn, if you watched it, you're like, oh my God.
Worse than CM Punk in UFC?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, Danis went to the ground, like trying to get Logan in his guard in like the third round. It was so bad.
Okay.
And then, he was trying to do a headlock takedown, and then he got disqualified. But Logan had handily won the fight.
Yeah. But he's smart pivoting to WWE, where he's less chance of getting concussed.
Yep.
Probably getting paid handsomely. You know?
I think he should win the U.S. title, in my opinion.
I do too. Whether you want to call him famous or notorious, whatever it is, he gets eyeballs. He just does.
And he is so good.
He's fantastic in a WWE ring. He's incredibly athletic. He's the whole package.
I mean, regardless of what you think of him, he's an exceptional wrestler. Very good, and not in the style. I mean, it's a hybrid of styles.
It is.
It's impressive. I mean, personally, I don't like the guy, but I mean, he's one of those guys like you hate to enjoy how good he is in the ring. It's really remarkable.
I don't like him for different things he's done, right?
Yeah.
To his fans and his followers, and
absolutely,
we both know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So for that, I don't like him, but I can't deny he's he's the best celebrity I've ever seen. Go into pro wrestling and turn it around and become that damn. He's amazing at it.
But these celebrity boxing fights, whatever you call it, this niche that the Paul brothers have made, I feel like they're starting to lose their luster, especially after Jake Paul, Nate Diaz. I don't know what else they're going to pull out of their hat. Dillon Danis, he did do a great job, building this fight.
He did.
But I just don't know where you go from here.
It's going to take a Conor McGregor. It's going to take a John. It's going to take somebody like that to come in from like a bigger name MMA star, or and we want to see the Chris Cross crossover, if you will, and see what happens. See how bad we all want to see the Paul brothers get just shellacked. Yeah, I think everybody does. Although Jake, it seems to be honestly the better brother for what it's worth.
Yeah, he beat Nate Diaz. He beat.
I mean, as far as being a good brother goes, like. Logan's terrible. He's a horrible brother to him. He steps on his pop all the time. He bitches and moans. He couldn't bring his prime bottle to his brother Jake's fight after Jake wins, while Jake's being sponsored by another sports beverage. Keep that in mind. And he bitches that he couldn't bring his that's what I mean.
They should fight each other. Brother. It's a good build.
Yeah. That would be huge, actually.
That's the money.
It would be. That'd be a very good fight. People would love to buy it. They'd love to see Jake whip his ass. I guarantee it.
I'd buy it.
So while we're talking about this with Logan going back to WWE against Ray, okay, so Dominic Mysterio is still like the biggest heat in all of wrestling.
Boy, is he.
He's awesome.
Friday night again was incredible. Nick Aldis now new general manager of SmackDown.
So excited. I literally do. I pray that they do transition him to a storyline eventually where he rips that suit off and puts his trunks back on, because he is too damn good of a wrestler just to be doing a GM role. But I think I don't know anything about this. I swear I didn't ask Nick this. I'm just guessing. I hope that's where they go with it eventually, because he's more than just a GM. I mean, he looks like $1 million in his suit. He's the best looking wrestler in a suit I've ever seen. His suits are immaculate, right? His tie, everything. His promos are money, but there's money to be made with his promos with him in a ring as an opponent for someone.
And he's only 36 years old. I think people assume he's older than he is. He's only 36.
No.
He has that look and poise of someone that's been a veteran forever. He's awesome.
And with his hiring, rumors that Mickie James might come back for one last run in WWE.
That'd be cool for her. I mean, she's done everything there is. She's done everything there is to do. Can I answer one question? One of our better followers asked it during
please.
Our Twitter advertisement that we put for tonight's show about, hey, what does Impact Wrestling need to do to take over as the number 2 wrestling show? And I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, but they need to get on a bigger network that more people have the opportunity to see. You can't compete with a TBS or a TNT if you're on some J-Bone network that nobody has or nobody can see. And I'm a very proud former Impact Pro wrestler. That's a better part of my career, quite honestly. But they're not on a big enough network for something like that. They need to go to a different network.
Yeah, I just think the gap. There's so much wrestling on that it's so hard for a number 3 to become number 2. And I'm not counting New Japan. I just mean in the U.S. And AEW has all this exposure, the big money behind it. Even if Impact were to get a good TV deal, which I don't see happening, it's just who wants to see more wrestling. You know?
I mean, Billy Corgan's teasing NWA is going to announce a decent TV deal soon.
Well, top 20. Yeah,
he said
top 20 network. Yeah, two. Yeah, he said 2. Yeah.
We'll see.
Hopefully that's cool. I always thought his concept was, I know he says it's not old school wrestling or whatever, but I always took it as old school NWA style wrestling, which is why I liked it when it first came out on YouTube. I love the interviews right next to the ring. I loved all of that.
And also from this week's SmackDown, LA Knight is getting a shot against Roman Reigns.
That was awesome to see him on SmackDown and getting that pop while John Cena is standing in that ring, while Roman Reigns is standing in that ring. His pop was still deafening. It's awesome.
And for him to be in there with Cena and Reigns and just feeling totally like he belongs. I mean, it's such a big feather in his cap. We've talked about LA Knight forever, way back in the day, for when how this dude was a guaranteed superstar. Took WWE a while to figure it out, but here we are.
Yep, I still think they're late to the party on it. I still think they lost a little bit. It could have been even bigger, and people think I'm crazy. Still could have been. He's there now, obviously, but I still don't think they're going to have him beat Roman Reigns.
No.
The Cody versus Roman Reigns is the angle that they're still going to get to eventually, where finally Cody's the one that knocks him off.
Yeah. I can see LA Knight beating Seth, though. I think LA Knight's way more over than Seth. Legitimately, people love Seth's song, and he has great matches. But I think people are more invested.
You're saying he should be the champion of the other show, then? Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could
do that at Mania. Yeah.
Okay. That makes up for his loss to Roman. That is inevitably coming up, right?
Yeah. That's crown jewel, I think.
Damn. Yeah. I hope it doesn't hurt him. I really do. I hope it doesn't hurt him.
Yeah.
Not everyone. A lot of people think I'm wrong with this, but I think we're getting Bloodline versus Judgment Day at Survivor Series.
I can see that. I mean, they do feel like they're building towards this. They do.
Yeah.
The 2 biggest factions.
But as long as it's not Judgment Day versus Cody and
that's
Sammy, which has been going on forever,
and the All Stars, Cody and the All Stars. That's what it feels like. None of them have any cohesion. None of them are really friends in real life. It's not the same thing versus the 2 factions. But here's my question: they're both heel groups.
Even better.
Let me ask you this: Bloodline is who now, right? Because Jay's not in it, so who is it? Just the 3 of them?
Well, so they had that thing backstage with Paul talking to Ava Raine at the Mega NXT, which answers the question of how do you deal with Rhea and having a female on female component to that match. I don't think Ava's quite ready yet, but for the role, maybe she could do something. I don't know. I mean, it seems like, look, it's been really weird with Roman being gone as much as he has, to the point where Judgment Day is more prominent than the Bloodline now.
Okay, let me ask you this: if they turn Judgment Day, they can't, because Dom, as long as Dom is in that, they can never be babyface.
Yeah,
correct. Maybe this doesn't matter, but what about you putting Jade Cargill as their female heater?
Oh, in the Bloodline, that'd be interesting.
And have her be the heater on top of it. Have her be like the Rhea Ripley. I mean, God, she looks like $1 million, and that tease with Charlotte Flair and Hunter was awesome. I loved it. Loved that.
Good way to turn Dominic face would be to have him interfere in Ray versus Logan. If Logan's going to win, Dominic comes in, makes a save. I don't think that'll do it though, but it's a good attempt.
I think that's how eventually you've got to make him babyface, to hug his dad and do something. Throw his body over his dad's body, who's already knocked out and about to eat some type of huge move from somebody, and he eats it instead. And they hug at the end, but still, Dom's money right now as far as being the most hated person on the planet.
I know, it's amazing. I love it. I love it. It's so good.
It's so funny. It is.
It's one of the best things to watch right now.
Dude, and NXT Tuesday was so much fun. Seeing John Cena there singing his actual lyrics. He marked out for that. Like, that was just a fun show Tuesday night.
Yeah. So me throw one thing past you guys. So Tony Khan thinks, like, does he think like WWE sitting there and they called up like Cody, they called up John Cena, they called up Undertaker, and they're like, hey, I'm pretending I'm Hunter. Hey, it's Taker. So listen, man, what are you doing on so-and-so date? So listen, AEW is going to be running against us, so we really need you. We need you to help us. So please, could you be there to help us beat AEW? No, that never happened. They don't even say the word. I promise you. It was brought up. I could see, like, maybe at the show, Cody saying something because he's from AEW to one of the other producers or something along those lines. Maybe at best, but not like, well, AEW's on that night. We really need a really strong stacked show to take them down. No, I don't believe that.
They wouldn't phrase it that way. I think they would say, hey, TV rights negotiation is coming up.
Yes.
We need to keep our streak going. We're going to have increased competition on this night. We got to do everything to make sure that we keep the ratings going. Yeah.
There's no way they're saying, oh, AEW's on tonight. Undertaker, we need you. He would laugh. He would laugh.
And to wrap this up, I know people said, it was unfair. These are WWE guys. These are guys under WWE contract. All is fair. You know?
How's it? Are people saying that it's not fair?
Yeah, lots of people. Yeah.
Why? It's the WWE. It's WWE.
They're like, oh, John Cena is in NXT. Undertaker's not in NXT. Cody's not in NXT. But it's like, dude, NXT is owned by WWE.
Wasn't it an anniversary show or something like that too? Or no?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Because Dylan Matthews is saying that Triple H impression was world class, Matt.
It was horrible. I can do way better than that. I'm sorry.
Super chats are coming soon, guys.
Yeah, everybody, please subscribe. Please subscribe.
Yeah. It really helps us out. Subscribe, hit the like button, spread the word. And we're brand new. We're low on the YouTube algorithm because of our newness, but we'll get there, and we appreciate your help.
So next week, we're not talking horror because it's Back to the Future Day. Raj wants to talk Back to the Future next week.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Talk time travel.
My favorite movie of all time.
I'll tell you guys, though, Totally Killer on Prime Video, new horror movie that came out, slasher time travel movie. References Back to the Future many times. Girl goes back in time to help her mom and her friends deal with a serial killer in 1987. It's a lot of fun. Called Totally Killer.
Totally Killer. Okay.
It's on Amazon.
Where can I watch it? Amazon? Okay.
Prime Video, Amazon. Watch it. Loved it. Smiling the whole time. Very well done. Maybe we'll mention that a little bit next week. When we talk Back to the Future. Until then, everybody, do us a favor. Like Raj said, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. Matt's at BP Matt Morgan. Raj is at the Raj Giri. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. And we'll get you back here next time on Gigantic Pop. Take care.
Subscribe now.